Lease duration. The terms of tenancy shall commence on the start date of your lease and end on the end date of your lease. Thereafter, this lease will be automatically renewed for a term equal of month to month unless written notice by termination is given by either party 30 days before the end of the current term, or annual lease is executed by both parties. Tenant is required to give 30-day written notice of termination even if the tenant intends to terminate lease at the end of the lease term. If the tenant fails to terminate this lease to be effective on the renewal date as provided above, tenant shall have accepted all new or changed terms. Any tenant who continues to occupy the premises under a month-to-month term shall be charged a monthly fee for such occupancy of 17% of the stated rent, in addition to a monthly rental payment. Lease terms of greater than or equal to 6 months will incur a one-time $150 lease renewal fee. Tenant has the option to attend a move-out condition report in the event tenant provides written notice to agent at time of move-out notice. Agent may change all terms and conditions of this lease in accordance with acceptable VRLTA law, including rent increases and other modifications to the contract with a 30-day notice. Rent escalation. Provided tenant is not in default of the lease, if terms and covenants, landlord may opt to renew this lease under similar terms and covenants and an equal or greater term, with the rent escalating by 2% on the commencement date of the lease and the commencement date of each subsequent lease year. Tenant acknowledges that should the owner require a rate increase higher than the stated 2% rent escalation clause, the rate increase shall supersede the escalation clause in the lease contract. Agent. Real Property Management Hampton Roads and Real Property Management Dominion has been appointed as agent for the owner of the premises. Authorized to manage the premises on behalf of the owner, agent shall not incur any direct liability whatsoever in the place of owner. If at any time the agency relationship between the owner and agent is terminated, owner retains all rights and responsibilities under this lease. Agent is authorized to perform any action in connection with the duties and enforcement of the provisions of this lease, including but not limited to the giving and receiving of notices and demands and the use of the legal system in the owner's or agent's name to request remedies under the VRLTA or Virginia landlord-tenant law. Agent is not responsible for any action permitted by or failure to perform any act required by the VRLTA or Virginia tenant law, and the tenant agrees that such responsibility remains the owner's responsibility solely. Tenant agrees that any litigation undertaken for obligations under this lease, especially litigation for refund of the security deposit or tenant assertion, shall be against the owner and not the agent or agent's employees. Tenant agrees to pay the reasonable attorney fees of the agent and agent's employee in defending any suit improperly led against the agent or agent's employees. Tenant acknowledges the agent shall be a proper person for service in any suit against an owner for the receiving of any notices to owner. Commission. As additional consideration of the negotiation of the lease by the real property management, landlord agrees to pay a commission based on the sale or exchange price of the property as outlined in the management contract. If at any time during the entire term of the tenancy or within 180 days after tenant vacates and/or end of the lease, landlord shall sell the property to the tenant or exchange it with the tenant for the property of any like kind and whereas located. Holdover. The tenant is required to give 30-day written notice of termination even if the tenant intends to terminate lease at the end of the lease term. If this lease is not renewed or is terminated and tenant fails to vacate the premises on the end day of the term, owner may immediately bring an action for possession of the premises. In addition, tenant shall pay owner rent at a rate equal to 150% of the rent payable immediately prior to termination for each month or part of a month that the tenant fails to deliver possession of the premises to the owner. Tenant shall also be liable for any other damages owner or agent may incur as a result of tenant's failure to vacate the premises. Time is of the essence for all tenants' obligations under this lease. Non-compliance with this section constitutes a material breach of the lease agreement.